everybody, welcome to the Houston Clutter Coaching Meetup group for March 2017. Today we're going to talk about outer spaces, organizing your garage, shed, or storage unit. Say hi everybody.
Hi.
Okay, welcome. So the shed and the garage and the storage unit is one of those outer spaces that I think we all use as a big dirty closet, right? When things have been deemed not usable anymore, I don't want it in the house, it's not good enough to live in the house, it goes outside to live, right? And that's the final destination before it dies, a natural death. It goes to park in the garage. So somehow it comes out of the climate controlled area and goes into the shed or the garage or the storage unit to die a little faster, right? This is one of the ways that it impacts our quality of life, right? You end up with these spaces that you can't use because we fill them up with stuff. We put so much stuff in the garage that you can't park the car. We put so much on the patio that you would in no way sit there and drink a drink and look at the view because it's so awful. You fill up the shed so that when you're going to garden, you have no idea what's in the shed and you can't possibly know what you have, and you end up going and buying it all again because I know there's something in there somewhere, but I'm not going to unpack it all to find it, right? So this is the way that those spaces sort of impede your quality of life. So I want you to think of those three spaces in your life and ask yourself these questions. Let me get to the questions. Can you park the car in the garage? That's the first one, right? And when you park the car in your garage, is it easy to get out and get to the door? So I've seen people that park the car in the garage and they pull up. My dad is one of them, and if he watches this video, I'm sorry for busting you, Dad. But he and his wife both get their car in the garage, and there's about this much space between the cars, and they like thread the needle to get it in there. It has to be exactly in the right place, and hers has to be exactly in the right place in order for both cars to fit and both doors to open and everybody can get out of the car. And it's a little scary to me to get in and out of their garage, to get in and out of the car in their garage. And so this is one of the things that we don't think about. Like, sure, you can pull the car in, but then do you have to, you can only open the door a quarter of the way and you have to slide out the side because there's stuff in the way and you can't open the door all the way? So that's a pathway that you want to be clear when you're using the car in the garage. Next question. Have you ever been able to sit out on the patio and drink a cocktail and enjoy the view? Or a soda or whatever you're... A lot of times there's so much garbage out there. The chairs are covered or put away. There's stuff on top of the patio so you can't even put a chair out there. Sometimes patios just get used as the concrete surface on which all things are stacked, right? So you can't really go out there and enjoy your backyard. Not that you would do that in July, but you might do it in March, right? Can you see what you have in the shed when you're gardening so that you have any idea what's in there? Or can your yard guys, if you're not the person doing the yard work, can the yard guys get into the shed and find the stuff? So if the answer to any of these questions is no, that's how these spaces are impacting your quality of life. Because you don't get to use them the way that they're intended, or you use them and it's hard to use them, right? If the shed, for instance, is completely full and you need the fertilizer that you put in the back last season, then you have to unpack the whole shed to get it. That makes it hard and difficult to do the gardening, and you're more likely to go back inside and have a Coke, right? So it's one of the ways that it gets in your way. So let's talk about the kind of stuff that you find in there. The number one thing that you find in these three spaces is cardboard boxes, right? So that box that you just got that you're keeping because it would be perfect to mail something in is great, except that you're going to add it to a pile that you already have of 35 boxes and you're only mailing one package a year, right? Like, people tell me all the time, that would be a great package to mail stuff in. Okay, so do you mail things to people? Well, yeah, I have relatives out of town, and how often do you mail them a package? Once a year? Then you probably don't need 35 boxes, right? Like, it's not really a good reason to keep it. And it's one of the things that cardboard looks useful and wonderful, and therefore it's declared it needs to be kept, and they go shove it outside where it's going to get eaten and wet and destroyed, right? But we put it out there anyway. Okay. The next thing is anything ever related to a plant. They ever had a plant in it, all the little plastic containers, all the little ceramic containers. I mean, I don't know what it is about those plastic containers. You go and you buy the plants, and they don't intend you to keep them in there. They intend you to take them out of the plastic and put them in the pot, which you do, and you put them in the pretty pot, and then you have this stack of plastic, and you look at them and you go, I might need that, and you stack them up and you go throw them in a corner somewhere. Why? They're recyclable. Just because they're dirty doesn't mean they can't be recycled. And somehow, unless you're like a really active gardener and you're starting your own seeds in a tray and then you're going to take them out and put them in little pots, like you can't sell me on why you need to keep 35 pots. And then they stay there and then you go buy another round next year and you just make the pile get bigger, right? Why do we do that? But that's one of the things you find in there. The third thing is in all of these spaces is every piece of sports equipment from any kid that ever did any sport ever, right? So they play soccer, and then they play baseball, and then they play, the next thing. And there's all of those balls, and some of them are good, and some of them are deflated, and you have bats and mitts and the hockey, whatever, the goalie net thing that is on a stand, and all those things go into the garage, and then the kids cycle out of that sport after a year or a decade or a month. And all that stuff is sitting in the garage and nobody's paying any attention to it. And it goes in and it never comes out. All of the projects that you started and never finished. Like that piece of furniture you were going to refinish, but you started sanding it and you had no idea how long it was going to take to sand it. And so, 5 hours in, you're like, no way am I finishing this because I'm so bored from sanding. That's one of the things that goes in and never comes out. Broken stuff, everything that breaks goes straight into the garage. I don't know why that is. Like somehow it looks like a trash can. When the vacuum cleaner breaks, you don't want to just go put it in the trash can. Somehow it feels like it should go park in the garage for a while.
Get better.
So it'll heal itself. Exactly. It'll heal itself. Hallelujah. Huh?
Maybe it'll work in a year.
Maybe it'll work in a year. I think really it just goes out there so it'll get really dirty and dusty looking, and then you'll feel comfortable throwing it out. Like when it doesn't look new anymore, then you feel better about it. But if it's broken, it goes straight to the garage, right? What about abandoned furniture? There's all sorts of furniture that it's nice furniture and you can't fit it in the house. You inherited it. You're going to use it someday. That's a big one. It goes into the garage and then it stays there for a decade. And it's nice furniture, and it's sitting out there in the humidity and the roaches, right? In this part of town, we got roaches crawling all over the wood furniture, and it's out there in the garage making a big mess. I don't know why that's the surrender place, instead of just saying, gee, this furniture won't work in my house, perhaps I should give it away. But this is what we do. We put the furniture in the garage. And then we block off our walking path from the car to the house because there's a big piece of furniture in the way. Like there's room for that. Let's not forget all the boxes of holiday gear for the fall season, right? Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. There's a million boxes, depending on how old your kids are or how into decorating you are. There's going to be a massive amount of holiday gear that all gets stored into that one of those 3 spaces, right? Because most people have an in-the-house set of all that stuff, and then the excess that they don't use goes into the garage because we don't want to give it up. We might use it someday. Yeah, no, you're just parking it out there. Okay. There's always a stack somewhere of leftover materials for construction. Like the last time you did a reno, right? And you replaced the tile or painted the walls or pulled the countertop out or put in new flooring, and then you're left with 2 or 3 boxes of tiles and all the paint cans that are left over from the project, and here's the really long pieces of lumber where they built the wood floor that the workmen just sort of throw in the corner of the garage, and then you ignore them forever. And you tell me when you're doing that, we might need to make repairs. That's why it's still there. Yeah, we're going to have that discussion in a minute. It's never enough you're saving all that construction stuff for touch-ups, but it's never really enough for, if you had a major repair, it wouldn't be enough. And if you have a minor repair, it's too much to keep. It's more than what a minor repair would use. And so you end up with saving a bunch of materials for 3 decades that then, you know, whoever gets the house, when you sell the house, is gonna use that material. No, they're not. They're gonna rip it out and start over. They're not gonna use your little 2 pieces of tiles and go put them away. So it's one of the things that gets parked into the garage to die forever, and it really doesn't have to be. So everything that's sort of dumped out there in the outdoor spaces is parked there because you still feel attached to it, and somehow it seems like it's better if we go stick it outside than if we just let it go. And it gets dumped out there literally because it's dirty and it's outdoor and it's hot, and no one takes any time to, like, think about how you would put something in and out of a closet inside the house. You'd put a little bit more effort into it. When you go to put it in the garage or the shed, you just go out there and sort of go, right? You just sort of toss it out there. So things literally get dumped out there, and all willy-nilly, I guess is the best way to describe it. And it really makes the space unusable fast because it's all in very precarious piles. I've been out and seen things that, you know, here's the cardboard box and it's half full of something that's breakable, and on top of it is 2 boxes of construction tiles that are slowly crushing the cardboard box underneath it. We don't think about it very hard when we're doing the garage, and we make a big mess that way. And then you can't use it, and it's not easy to maneuver in either, and it's not really safe to maneuver in actually. So this is a space that we want to try to reclaim so that you can make good use of it. So the same process rules apply. It's a big dirty closet, but it's a closet, right? The garage is still being used as a closet for the car. The shed is for the gardening and whatever. The storage unit is for excess stuff from the house, but it's all still a big closet, right? So the same process rules apply. You're still going to pull everything out. You're going to sort it all. You're going to make keep-toss decisions. And then you're going to hopefully put things back in a way that makes it easy for you to use. It makes things easy in and out, so you can still walk in the garage, shed, whatever, and get things out. But these outdoor spaces have unique disposal issues related to the tossing part of the keep-toss decisions. Like once you decide it's going to stay, then you can make plans for that. But the stuff that you're going to toss is not usually stuff that can just be thrown into a trash can, right? So we're going to talk about those disposal issues first. Toxic chemicals can't go in the regular trash, right? So you have to find a place to dispose of that in your city. So the city of Houston has 2 environmental service centers with some limited hours where you can load all the stuff up in the car and go take it and dispose of it there.
Do you know where those are?
Yes, and they're on my website.
Okay.
There's a recycle grid on my website. It's a spreadsheet. But basically there's one that's on South Post Oak. The Environmental South one is on South Post Oak here, down a little ways. And then the other one on the north side, I forget what the address is on the north
There's
side.
something on West Park.
That's the big consumer drive-through facility,
Yeah,
but they do not take toxic chemicals.
No.
They're not a toxic facility.
What do they take?
That's electronics.
Whole big old long electronics and cardboard and glass and all sorts of stuff goes in there. And you can take water-based paint there, but you can't take toxic stuff.
City website.
Yeah, and I have a big spreadsheet that has all that stuff listed. So paint is a hybrid because anything that's fully dried, paint or stains, regardless of water or oil base, if it's a rock in the can, then you can throw it in the trash. But only if it's not in any way liquid or spillable, right? I'm sorry?
That's interesting.
Right? So once it's a rock, so that it can't be toxic waste into the landfill, like it can't pour out and poison anything because it's turned into a brick, then you can just throw it out with the regular trash. But water-based paint, like I just said, water-based paint can go to a regular recycling facility most of the time. And that's true in Houston. You can take water-based paint through West Park. But every job has the water-based stuff that goes on the wall and the oil-based stuff that goes on the trim, or whatever. You got wood stain that's oil-based, and so it's hard to get rid of all of your cans in one pass. You're going to have to separate the regular recycling from the toxic recycling. If it's a can that's partially full, like you painted the wall and you have half a can left, you can go buy really cheap clay cat litter and pour clay litter in there, and it will absorb it and turn into a rock, and then you can throw it away. You have to let it dry completely, but if you pour cat litter that's designed to absorb and let it absorb and turn into a brick, then you can throw it in the regular trash. So that requires some time lapse. And it doesn't work for a full can, right? Because the cat litter is going to displace the stuff. And so if you open a can that's full, that's not going to be a solution for you. But for all those partial cans that you have a gallon and you only have half of it still, you can fill the other half with cat litter until it's full up to the top, and then let it absorb and turn into a rock. Throw it out. It'll save you some of the trip. Okay, that's about the cat litter. Then full cans can be donated somewhere usually. So if you have a full can and it's not a color you're still using in the house, B, it's not one that you're going to want to match or anything in the future. If it's a full can, there's always some place that could donate it. In Houston, you can take it to the toxic place, and they have a room where they put full stuff for people to come and pick. But Habitat for Humanity also has a restore here in a couple of places in town. So you can take that stuff off to Habitat for Humanity, and they'll use it in one of their houses, which is great. And it gets it out of your garage. Yes?
Also, Home Depot and Lowe's will take paint back, and they put it in a certain section in a bin. It's called their Oops paint. and they mark it down.
Awesome.
pennies.
There you go. So that it can go away that way real easily. Okay. So construction materials like leftover tile and flooring, they really take up a lot of room, and you need to rethink how much you keep, right? This is where you save it in theory because you're going to do touch-ups, but you invariably save way more than you would ever actually use. And if you think about it this way, sure, you might use a can of the paint that you just painted the walls with because one of the kids wrote with crayon on the wall and you have to fix it, or somebody moved a piece of furniture and gouged a hole. But in that case, you'd only really need about a quart. You need a smaller container to do a little minor touch-up. If you have to repaint the entire wall because something went wrong or you're changing the color, then those 3 leftover cans are not going to be something that you use, right? So we tend to save it all when we only need a little bit. Because when there's a threshold you cross where you're not going to do repairs anymore, you're going to replace, you're going to start over. And then your little stash of leftovers isn't going to be enough. And the same with the tile. So if you throw your skillet onto the tile in the kitchen and you bust a tile, you can get somebody to take that tile out and put one in to replace it. But if there's a plumbing problem and the plumbing under the floor breaks and it all buckles, you're going to start over, right? You're going to rip the whole floor up. You're not going to put in 40 tiles and leave the old ones in. You're going to rip the whole floor up and start over. So keeping 4 or 5 actual tiles versus keeping 5 boxes of leftover tiles. You see the difference? I'd keep the 5 loose ones and I'd let all the rest of them go. Because if I get past 5 tiles to repair, I'm going to be doing a new reno, right? I'm starting over. Same with the wooden floor, right? Occasionally somebody's going to gouge the floor, or you're going to, the dog is going to pee on the floor and stain a piece of wood or something you don't realize until it's already stained. So you may go in and replace a little bit, but you're not going to go replace half the floor, right? So keep enough for minor repairs and let the rest go out to Habitat for Humanity for somebody to use it right now, right? That way it won't be taking up room in your house and it won't sit there for 3 decades and someone else can get good use for it. Large furniture needs to be donated. If you have moved that furniture into the garage because you can't use it in the house, it's time to let it go. So call your favorite charity and schedule a pickup.
They won't pick up anymore.
I'm sorry?
I had a couch and I called 20 people and they would not pick up anymore. They say the gas and they don't have the people. And so it became a problem.
It is an issue.
It was a big issue because I didn't have any way to get rid of it.
So I would, in that case, if you can't get any response, a lot of times they want couches that are going to be in good shape. But if you went and put them on on next door neighborhood or someplace like that and said, hey, I'm in your neighborhood and I have this couch and who wants it, you can put it out to the curb on a sunny day and let somebody pick it, right?
Just got a notice that AMVET said they'd pick up, and I had Salvation Army, now this was some years back, pick
This
up
was
furniture.
just 2 months ago. I tried everybody.
Oh, okay.
Purple Heart.
Yes, sir.
First Baptist
Interesting.
Mission will take the furniture and they will send someone in a pickup truck to pick it
Oh,
up.
okay.
Awesome.
That's good.
I
That's
did
true.
that to when I
And that's
was
one of the
with
things, like,
charity.
if you don't want to do the big name charities, you can also call churches and stuff that do family support system programs. They all have some, you know, they're helping refugees or they're helping people whose houses are burned down or whatever. And they're always trying to restock apartments and that kind of stuff. And so there's always somebody out there that will want it. We just have to look far enough. And I would target your phone calling a little differently.
Well,
But you
yeah,
can talk to him if you still have it.
No, I.
Okay.
But I scheduled the appointment, they scheduled them, they tell me the day, the time, and on the
Yeah,
day.
it's not
and
easy.
time.
It's not easy to get rid of furniture, it's true. But it can be done, you just have to be
Yeah.
persistent.
Houston Furniture Bank, too.
Yeah, and Houston Furniture Bank too, but, you know, they have their own issues about,
You can put it out on the street with your trash and it'll be gone within half an hour.
right?
Yeah.
You can try to recycle it on heavy trash day, right? You need to put it out the weekend of the month when it's heavy trash
It'll
day.
always be gone.
But they will, he's right, it will, if it's in good shape, it'll get, you know, it'll get pucked, so. There you go. There is a way to, it is a hassle to get rid of the furniture, but if it's taking up space in your garage and it's causing you trouble, it needs to get out of there, right? And why not, if it's in the garage, why not let somebody use it? If it's in the storage unit, why not let somebody use it? Let them have it, right? So that's one, for furniture. Then the broken stuff needs to go out with heavy trash. If you need to dump a whole lot of stuff that you would normally go to the dump to do, you might consider using a bagster. And I've talked about that in here before. Bagster is a waste management product. You go and buy the canvas bag at Lowe's or Home Depot for 35 bucks. You open it up on the driveway, you fill it up, 3,300 pounds of stuff, and then you go online and pay 140 bucks to have it picked up. And so you work on your schedule, you put it out in the driveway, fill. When you're finished, you call, and a couple of days later the truck will come with a claw and put it in their truck and drive away. It makes it easy to dispose when you don't want to be putting it in your car, drive it off somewhere, and you don't want to hire somebody you don't know to come. Now you can hire a company and deal with them for 30 minutes while they grab it with a claw and stick it in their truck, right? It's a good way to get rid of a lot of heavy stuff, because a lot of times the stuff that's in the garage and shed is things that are big and heavy, right? Okay, that's those pieces. Okay, so let's talk about outdoor storage rules. As you're working on these projects, you need to remember that cardboard is the enemy of an outdoor storage space, right? Because cardboard boxes are just condominium materials for roaches and mice. And the worst project I ever had was a couple who had lived in the house for a long time, and they had a bunch of fields back behind their house, and they threw every box they ever got into the garage in a pile. And so there was a huge pile, and it was, you know, this tall, and it filled up one of the parking spaces, and that was just the stack of empty cardboard boxes. And when they were moving out of the house, we had to clear that out. And so we got in there and started clearing, and the bottom third of it, between the weight of all the boxes above it, the humidity, and the mice that had moved in, it had turned into compost at the very bottom. And it was just basically like mouse house. It was a mouse, you know, condo building unit. So cardboard outside bad. You don't want to be storing anything important in cardboard outside. The heat's going to destroy it. It's going to attract bugs. The mice will use it, eat it, live in it. No cardboard outside.
The roaches eat the glue.
Right, there's something about the glue that attracts them. That's so weird.
They eat it. That's why if you find envelopes that some of the glue's missing, roaches have been feasting on it, so don't touch it.
Yeah, see, welcome to Houston. We have some big roaches that like the glue. Yeah. So, all the more reason, no cardboard outside, forget it. Second thing about storage outside is larger is not better. So somehow when we're doing the garage, we think that we need to go buy the biggest containers possible, because surely in the garage, bigger is better. And you go into Home Depot and the first thing you find is these huge Rubbermaid things that are, and you're like, oh, surely 60 gallon is a great idea. No, it's not. Can you pick it up when it's full? No, right? So you will be inclined to try to find the biggest thing possible, and I'm going to tell you stop it now, and go get the smallest thing possible, because if you can fill it up and still lift it, that's your goal, and smaller containers will be better for your back. And if you have to stack more containers instead of one big one, it'll be easier to move it around. So unless you have somebody who is tall and or strong, who is also willing to help, which means if you have a 18-year-old son who is, playing video games, and he's like, yeah, mom, whenever, he's not going to go out and help you. Unless you have a ready and willing helper who will not be harmed by large containers, you need to buy stuff that you can manage, okay? And you want lids that snap on, right, so that they're basically sealing in. You are sort of creating a slight little oven in there because it's, it's 120 degrees in the garage in the summer and you're dying in there. So you have to know that things are going to be slightly cooking all the time out in the garage, but better that they're not also bug infested, right? So close them off, seal things up, and make them be stackable. If you don't want the paint that you keep to be drying up really quickly, or the wood that you store out there to be absorbing a bunch of humidity and sort of distorting themselves, you probably want to keep those things in climate controlled space. If it's a bunch of paint that you're not too worried about, you can leave it out there, but just know it's cooking faster in there and it's speeding up the destruction of its useful life. Which maybe helps because it means you'll be able to throw it away sooner. But if you really want to be able to use it, you might want to consider storing that in someplace in the house that's climate controlled. And the paint cans, they also make snap-on lids now that are a good replacement for, and a better seal. Like once you open a can and use it and you're pulling it up and down several times, the top tends to get a little warped, the seal's not so great. But they make plastic covers now that will snap on, sort of like a Tupperware lid. So you can put something on it that will make it store better, basically. Okay, that's about paints. When you're storing this stuff, this is the place where all heavy things go to live. So you want to make sure that you're not trying to lift something super heavy up high. You want all the heavy stuff on the ground and the lighter stuff on top. And think about it this way, if you're trying to reach up and pull something down and you accidentally lose control and it whacks you on the head, you want to still be conscious when you're done, right? So if it's too heavy, like I tried to put a Mixmaster, from the kitchen, I tried to sit it up like this, and then when I went to pull it down, it was top heavy and it whacked me in the head and almost knocked me out. You don't want to be trying to pull something down that's heavy that you're going to lose control of and pieces of your body are going to break off. So heavy on the ground, all right? Make sure that you leave room for your car door. So people drive in and think, okay, there's enough room, and then you go to open the door and you don't realize how far you have to swing the door out, and it goes several feet away from the car, and you have to be able to swing it out so that you can get out of the car physically, right? So you need to have a cube around the car that will hold the door and you when you step out of it, right? So you can't put stuff all along the side of the car if you want to be able to actually get out and not have to do a little acrobatic act to get out. You've been in those parking spaces where you're like sliding down the side of the car. You don't want to do that every day of your life or you're going to be really mad, right? So leave space for that corridor to move. Things that tend to fall over, like the sports equipment or the gardening equipment, all those long, tall, pokey things, that if you lean in the corner, they slide, they fall over, they tip, they roll around. All those things need to be in a container that will hold them or up on the wall. So there's all sorts of gardening support for the tools to snap up on the wall, or you can use if you think of a big galvanized trash can, use something that you can put weights in the bottom so it won't tip, because all that stuff is really top heavy, right? But if you use something that it can hold it doesn't matter if it gets dirty, you can stick all the tools in it and it won't tip it over. That keeps them sort of safely out of the way, right? Put the paint buckets in there. Hey, they're heavy enough, it works, right? Whatever works. Bricks, you can put those leftover tiles in the bottom of it, right? Yeah. So you just want to make sure that all of those things are top heavy. So when you put them in a tall, skinny cylinder, you don't want them to knock the cylinder over. It needs to be something that can hold the weight and hold those things up. But keeping those things corralled or putting them up on the wall will get them out from underfoot and not falling over into your car, which would be good. Okay. So let's talk about the project timing itself. This is one of those things where, so if you have a team, when I go to a garage, I go in and we pull everything out, and I'm working with me and the homeowner and whoever else we can rope into the process, right? And we're pulling it all out and we're sorting it all in the driveway with the intention that it all goes back in at the end of the weekend, right? And between Saturday and Sunday, you still have to bring stuff in, right? So usually we have to do, you know, a certain portion of it and then stop and then come back the next day and do another portion that doesn't leave all of your valuable stuff on the driveway overnight where it is clearly going to walk away, right? So I do a whole bunch of work in a short period of time to get the garage complete. But when you're trying to do this on your own, you're not going to want to do that, right? And you're not going to want to wear yourself out on the project. So don't consider it a I have to get it done this weekend kind of project. And think of it in stages of removal first. Like I would start with, there's all sorts of things that have to go, right? The toxic chemicals is the first one. And you have to take those and drive them to a specific place, right? So I would go through the garage, in the shed, and in the house, under the kitchen sink, in the bathroom sink, all those chemicals that need to go to toxic waste. You should make a trip, you should plan a disposal day for the toxic chemicals and go and pull everything out, all the gardening. Anytime anybody has a gardening shed or has been playing with gardening, there's all sorts of bug fertilizer treatment, soil additive, whatever. There's all sorts of chemicals in there. And if you didn't like it, if you would never use it again, if it's not a good idea, whatever, you've changed your mind, you don't have that plant anymore, whatever. It's time to make that stuff go, right? So plan a toxic chemical day that coordinates with when they're open and go through and just try to pull all of the toxic chemicals out. Now, load them in boxes, in small boxes, before you put them in the car so that they don't eat your carpet. And you may have to roll, you don't realize it because the garage is a big open space, you may have to roll the window down while you're driving because you will have some serious fertilizer smell in that car, right? If you've ever bought fertilizer and gone home and the car smells like fertilizer, right? So if you imagine all those chemicals going into your car and it's sealed up and you've got the air conditioner on recycle, you're going to be like passing out in 5 minutes. So you need to be super careful when you're doing it and just make sure that if you feel like the air is in any way difficult, roll your windows down and just survive the heat for the drive to the toxic chemical place, okay? Chemicals, and then the construction material is another removal day, right? Because once you've made your decision about how much you need to keep for repair versus major renovation, and you want things to go away to Habitat or the equivalent, Habitat for Humanity or the equivalent in the city, then you want to pull all that stuff out. Here's the tiles, here's the floor, here's the paint cans, I'm going to donate to them, here, whatever you in the house that you want to take to Habitat. Then make that a day, that's a removable day. Then the furniture day is another removable day. You got to pull out everything that you're going to donate to somebody for pickup. And that would be a process of remove, and meet somebody's schedule for them to come out, or get somebody to come and drag it to the curb if you're going to put it out for somebody to pick up. Heavy trash. But schedule those days around, like I would plan a heavy trash day and a furniture pickup day all at the same time, so that you can pull everything out that the city is going to come and pick up in their heavy trash truck, and you can pull it out on Friday or Saturday so that it's there for several days until the next week when the truck comes, and a lot of it will disappear on its own. And then there'll still be stuff left to be, if there's something left, the heavy trash guy is going to come and get it. And you can pull the furniture out, like you'll be removing big things, and then you'll probably have better access to the furniture you're trying to get out to let that be picked up for donation. Okay? So do all those removal things first, and then you can go back in. You will have taken out anything that's going to trash, you'll take out all the chemicals, donations, all that stuff will be gone. And then what's left is the stuff you want to keep. Then you can spend a day organizing what you've got left and it's a much smaller job, right? Because all that moving and removing and relocating and donating and trashing is gonna take a lot of work. And so, once you've got all that out of the way, you're left with the work that is make the shed layout good, make the garage layout good, right? Okay, I'm hoping that those are tips enough to get you going on those projects. Now's better than later because it's gonna get hot soon. But it's still tolerable. I just did one last week. I was in a garage working last week, so it wasn't too bad. It's never fun, but it's not too bad yet. So if you can, you probably have a month and a half before you have to do something, before you have to give up for the summer. So does anybody have any questions for me now? Yes, ma'am.
Where are the 2 locations for the Habitat of Humanity?
So the one of them is on 610 South towards 45. It's not all the way to 45, but it's almost there. And I know that there's one on the north side, but I don't know where. Do any of you guys know?
I heard of that one, but there's one on Murphy Road, Fort Bend County one.
Oh, there you go.
One on
Okay.
Murphy Road.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you can Google that and find locations because I know they have a couple of them around, and they're
Called
big.
Restore.
The Restore, yeah, and they have a whole bunch of. They take a whole lot of stuff. I mean, I'm always amazed what's being sold in there from their donations that come in. There's always something weird in there, and you know, it used to be in somebody's garage before it was there to be sold. Yes, sir.
I don't have a garage. I got rid of my yard stuff and hired a yard service.
Yay.
And I don't have a house anymore either. But my question is, if you're gonna tackle that project, should you sit down and write a list of priorities that you wanna work on first? I'm a big list maker, so.
Sure, you can make a list. I mean, you know, that list of get rid of, and you can do that in the order that makes you happy, right? And you know, the heavy trash is gonna be governed by when the next heavy trash pickup is in your neighborhood, and the furniture pickup by when the person can come pick it up, and the toxic waste by when there like the south one is open on Tuesday and Wednesday from, you know, mid-morning to mid-afternoon and every third Saturday, or, you know, their hours are real odd, so you have to schedule when you're gonna go dump it off based on when they're open. So organizing those things along when you have time on your calendar would be a priority list to make.
Do you have a rule of thumb as to how long you don't use an item before you get rid of it? I kind of go by the 6-month rule.
If that one works for you, absolutely. I mean, it's an arbitrary marker, right? Not everybody feels comfortable with 6 months. Some people don't feel, you know, it's like if they haven't used it in a month, they're happy to let it go. And it's always a function of how sentimental are you and blah, 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 blah. But if 6 months works for you, it's really just create a place about which you're comfortable to say, I draw the line here, and let it go.
I've been getting rid of things so my son won't have to deal with it when I die.
And he will thank you later.
Oh, he's already thanked me.
That's a very lovely thing to do.
Yeah.
Because it's a huge amount to dismantle somebody's life, right? And you want them looking at the photos of you and the things that remind them of you. You don't want them dealing with the shrapnel in the garage, right? That was something that my mother and I did probably 3 years before she passed away. We went out in the garage I went out in the spring and we worked in the garage a couple of times. And she hated it, she didn't want to do it, but there was so much, this is a bunch of old shredding, and we got all that shredding on, and there was artwork that she had done in college that I didn't even know was there, and it was out in the garage, and I was so happy to see it. So it's, you know, it's the place when you move into the house that you shove everything you don't want to deal with, and then it just sort of never comes out, right? And so it's a lot of work to clear it out, but if you can do it, he's going to thank you a million times.
I recycled all my yearbooks from high school and college.
Good for you.
And then I got rid of most of my library, about 6,000 books.
That's a lot of books. Oh my gosh.
So
Think about all those happy book people that they went back into the book stream, and all those happy book people were finding new books. That's so awesome. Good for you. You're doing great.
Half-price books.
Right? That's a great place. Yes, ma'am.
We just went into the garage to pull up camping gear,
Right?
because we're organizing camping stuff. And all that old stuff from the garage is all rusty, and I wouldn't dare use it anyway, so that's gonna go.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the thing about in Houston. Once it goes outside and it's not climate controlled, It's all just getting destroyed by humidity, right? Humidity and heat is the toxic combination in Houston. And you know, there's other places in the country where the summers aren't so terrible, but then I imagine they have the opposite problem, like the paint can't be outside because it freezes into a rock in the winter, right? So, you know, we all have our issues of outside storage that we have to deal with, and you have to take those into consideration. I mean, I suppose it's also part of, gee, if I put it in the garage, nature will destroy it, and then I can let it go. You know, it makes it easier for us to let it go, because, you know, somehow the universe killed it, and you didn't have anything to do with it, right? Good for you. But that's the thing, it's like somebody probably could have used the camping gear if you'd been willing to surrender some of it earlier, right? And now it's rusty and you let it go. And you're right, you don't want to be out there and have the pole snap because it's rusted. Who else has a question? Anybody? All right, well, I think I will stop and let you guys talk to me afterwards. Thanks so much, and we will see you next time.